Okay, thank you, Mr. Martin. It was a very interesting presentation. And there are many questions from the people, audience, and from myself. First of all, when you talked about resignation, you resigned when Japanese government approached your country and sort of pushed the agenda of the whaling, the vote at the IWC. How was it actually? How Japanese government approached your country, and how things happened, and why you resigned, and how you felt about it at the time?
Before I came to office as minister, the Japanese government had already been in discussion with the previous government about whaling and the IWC, and many fisheries officials from my country had been brought to Japan by the Fisheries Agency of Japan, and they had been cultivated and told what the Japanese position is. So in my ministry, there were officials who had been contacted by the Japanese government even before they came to talk to me. After the Japanese ambassador spoke with me and then went to the Prime Minister, we had a cabinet meeting to discuss the situation, and cabinet agreed at my request that if we went to the IWC meeting, we would at least abstain on the votes as opposed to voting with Japan. So that was an agreement at the cabinet level. That particular IWC meeting was held in Australia, and I was on other government business in Washington in America when I discovered that Dominica's commissioner had voted with Japan in contravention of the cabinet decision. I contacted the Prime Minister and asked him to immediately recall the ambassador. He didn't do that, and I told him if by the time I returned to Dominica, we had not recalled the ambassador and changed the vote, that I would resign. When I came back, there was no change, so I resigned. I would say the most significant lesson from this is how it is possible for a foreign government to cause a cabinet decision in another government to be overturned because they have promised development assistance. So effectively, it is basically purchasing the authority and sovereignty of a government by promising development assistance.
Thank you. So that's why you call it a form of new colonialism, and I perfectly agree with that. It's very ugly endeavor. The second question then is a little complex group of questions with from the audience and from others. I personally also hear from some of the development countries' diplomats that their country vote with Japan, but the diplomat and the people of the country would never like the killing of the whales, but because their country receives the ODA from Japan, they can't help. And so, what do you think about it? Well, maybe that's the second question. The second question then is a little complex group of questions with from the audience and from others. I personally also hear from some of the development countries' diplomats that their country vote with Japan, but the diplomat and the people of the country would never like the killing of the whales. But because their country receives the ODA from Japan, they can't help. And so, what do you think about it? Well, maybe that's the second question.
In my country, we have a slogan that we repeat very often to politicians. Ministers are not masters. So one of the issues raised by what we can call the vote-buying strategy of Japan is the question of democracy and sovereignty. Because the only way to prevent public officials from taking liberty with the resources of your country and with the rights and authority of their office is for the people of the country to be directly involved, and first of all to be informed about what it is those officials are doing. And it is a violation of the trust of the people when public officials will accept money from somebody else to be traveled somewhere, to go visit, to meet with people in our name as the people, but without our knowledge. And it is also a tragic betrayal of the public trust when the government accepts and agrees, in this case, for Japan to pay our fees to the IWC, which is about £21,000, and that is not in our budget. There's no record of a payment in our budget to the IWC. None at all. Never. Somebody else, every year, for the past 15 years, has paid our fees and that of many other countries. That country that has paid the fees is Japan.